Hi everyone, this is Dr. Victoria Nalule. I hope you're all fine. So this is a continuation to my previous video about the backward energy transitions, and I had mentioned that one of the reasons as to why countries are experiencing a backward energy transition first is because of the ineffective energy policies. So for energy policy, that's another topic. It's a big topic, but in this video, let me just try to explain why the energy policies are ineffective and why there is a confusion when it comes to energy um, legislation or even the various energy policies in the different parts of the world. This is not really something that is unique to one country. So for the energy policy to be, or for the energy policies to be effective, they have to address the energy trilemma. That is, the energy policy should take into consideration the political aspects. The energy policy should comply with the economic aspects. It should comply with the environmental aspects. And then lastly, the social aspects. So why is politics important when it comes to energy policies? First, the energy sector energy resources are unequally distributed among its countries. So you'll find that it's hard to find a country that is independent when it comes to the energy sector. So a country will either be an importer or an exporter of energy resources. So implying that the politics will always play a big role when it comes to the development of the energy sector in different countries. That's why you're seeing that the geopolitics in Europe, the Russian and Ukrainian war, has had a big impact on the various energy policies in Europe. First, initially, most European countries, the UK, the EU Parliament, they were very eager to stop funding for fossil fuels. But because of this politics, the geopolitics, and considering the role of Russia when it comes to energy supply in Europe, this geopolitics has forced the EU or even other European countries, even the UK, to reverse their energy policies. Now, I'll go back to this issue of reversing the energy policies. I'll go back to the issue later. So now that is the politics when it comes to energy policies. The energy policy to be effective, it has to take into consideration the political aspects. How are you likely to be impacted politically in case of any geopolitics, any political instability in one country? Is it likely to impact on your energy security and hence negatively impact on new energy policies? So that is the political aspect. Then the economic aspect is basically to do with the finances. Because remember, energy resources, the energy projects are very expensive ventures, often requiring a large amount of capital, which is beyond the reach of a government. So governments in most cases will invite international oil companies to invest in those resources. So the economic aspect is, for a country, what are you interested in? Are you going to develop both the renewable energy and fossil fuels, which should be the case, obviously? And if that is the case, do you have the resources to finance those projects? If you don't have the resources, then you have to take into consideration the economic aspect. How will you get the resources to finance your projects? Then the other economic aspect is the revenues that can be got from these energy resources, especially fossil fuels. They can really contribute a lot when it comes to the economic development of the country. So that's also another economic aspect that countries really have to take into consideration when formulating their energy policies. So we have talked about the political aspect, the economic aspect. Now the other thing is the environmental aspect. And then the environmental aspect has become a very important aspect in recent years, obviously because of the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change, and also the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 13, which is focused on climate action. So the third aspect of environmental protection is really in the limelight. And that's why you will see many activists focused on the environmental aspect, um, demanding for countries and leaders to immediately stop funding for fossil fuels, because fossil fuels definitely contribute to the greenhouse gas emissions. So that is the environmental aspect. And the question here is, how are you going to balance the energy security needs and also at the same time balance the net zero targets or the environmental protection aspects? So the third aspect is a very important one, and most countries have been focused on environmental protection, but there is also that dilemma of how you can balance the energy security needs or energy access and then at the same time protect the environment. Then the last one is the social aspect. And here, remember, because when you talk about the energy sector, you're not only talking about the resources. Behind the energy sector, there are corporations that are going to invest, there are host governments, there are also host communities, the people who stay in communities in those areas where the projects are taking place. So the social aspects will take into consideration human rights protection. How are their human rights protected? And also the other thing is, what are the impact of these projects, energy projects, on the social welfare of those people, of the host communities? So those are the four main aspects. So why is it that in 2022 we're really experiencing, or we're opening our eyes to the fact that different countries, most especially the developed countries, have ineffective energy policies? First, because faced with the geopolitics or faced with the global energy crisis, we have seen these countries panicking. They're not strong enough to believe in the energy policies they have been formulating for years. For instance, in the EU or even in the UK, there have been previously debates to stop funding for fossil fuels. But now, faced with the global energy crisis, you are seeing countries now changing their position, investing more in fossil fuels, running to Asian countries, running to African countries to get more gas. So you are panicking, implying that the energy policies you had formulated were not strong enough, or they were ineffective. Why were they ineffective? They didn't take into consideration the political aspects. Because for the energy policy to be effective, you have to be sure that in case of a war, can our countries sustain themselves? In case of like political instability in a different country, can our countries sustain themselves with the resources that we have? And if that's not the case, then don't make energy policies that are going to be detrimental to your people. For instance, I was reading an article, and the author was actually blaming the ineffective energy policies in the UK. And he was arguing that the UK is being humiliated when it comes to the energy sector because they decided to de-invest in fossil fuels. And now with the energy crisis, they have to run to other countries for these resources. But if your energy policy is really effective, you should have really thought about all those issues, the political aspects, the economic aspects, the environmental aspects, and also the social aspects. So for the energy policies to be effective, you have to balance these four. You can't just pick out one aspect and you're like, you know what? Our energy policies are only going to be focused on the environmental aspects to protect the environment. You're leaving out the political aspect. You're leaving out the economic aspect, the social aspects. We have witnessed various protests, like in Germany. People are really angry because of the ineffective energy policies, because of the increase in oil and gas prices because of the energy bills that are really escalating. So that is also a social aspect that can turn into politics. Because now, if people cannot afford to pay for the energy bills, we're experiencing inflation, partly because of the global energy crisis, because of the rise in oil and gas prices. That means that countries have been making ineffective energy policies. So, in summary, obviously, you will have to invite me or invite my firm to do some research on these aspects. But in summary, for the energy policy to be effective, it has to balance the political aspects, the economic aspects, environmental aspects, and also the social aspects. Because failure to balance these different aspects, you end up with ineffective energy policies. And that shouldn't be the case. Don't just focus on one aspect. Balance the environmental aspect, that is the climate change. You have to balance it with the economic aspects and be sure that as we're tackling climate change, people can be able to afford cheap energy or to afford their energy bills. Because once you only focus on climate change or environmental aspects and you're not considering the social aspects and the economic aspects, then there will be a mess. It will be a big mess, as we're seeing right now in the current energy crisis. So that's it for now. Have a lovely day, and I'll be making more videos and hosting more people. So do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Victoria Nalule, and involve us at our consulting firm, that is Nalule Energy and Mining Consultancy. In brief, it's called NIM Energy. We have the leading global energy and mining experts. So involve us at NIM, and bye-bye.